Hey there, I'm Chase Hansen, your DFW Realtor, here today to talk about home inspections. Now, a home inspection is a professional evaluation of the general condition and basic performance of the house, its major systems and appliances. So to put that in easier terms to understand, it's someone who knows what they're talking about because they're professionally trained to inspect your home and required by the state to look at a certain level of detail. So they're looking at the building, what condition it's in, if there are any red flags or warning signs, any safety issues or things put together wrong. They're also looking at major systems, so your roof, foundation, HVAC, water, electrical, doing a basic inspection. So they're not taking anything apart, but they're trained to recognize red flags and can let you know if you need to have a more detailed evaluation done by a roof specialist or foundation company. And they're even checking the dishwasher and the oven and other fixture appliances to make sure they're operational so you're not getting as many surprises when you move in. Inspections are super important. They're the biggest piece of due diligence that you do in the home buying process to get a sense of what state the house is in. And because you need to know if the HVAC is dying, or if one of the rafters in the attic is cracked and about to fall in, or if the house is wired incorrectly. And a big thing that Texas homeowners know all too well that a first-time home buyer or person moving to Texas for the first time might not be aware of. Texas is notorious for foundation issues. In North Texas, we have a lot of red clay in our soil, so that expands and contracts with the seasons and weather. And an inspector can help you look for signs of foundation trouble and whether you need to have a foundation company come out and do a deeper analysis. And they can also tell you what's likely just normal settling, since houses here usually are going to have some minor settling cracks, and that's not always a sign of a big problem. The inspection is about getting as much information as possible about the home into your hands. It equips you to make the best decisions that you can. Most of the time, it just highlights a few small things that you'll want to repair over time, or normal maintenance tasks for you to be aware of, and maybe a more expensive repair that you'll want to ask the sellers to pay for. And then sometimes it uncovers a major red flag that makes you change your mind about wanting to buy the house at all. The point is that you need that information so you can make the best decisions for you. So the rest of this video will be covering 3 main sections to better understand this stuff, and we'll move pretty quickly through them. Our sections are what an inspector does and doesn't do, common mistakes that buyers make in understanding inspections, and an overview of what's covered by the inspection report and how to approach it. So again, we're going to move quickly. This is meant to be an overview and an entry point, not an exhaustive explainer. So if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments or to contact me through the email in my profile. I want to make sure that the people that I serve understand what's going on so they have a leg up in the home buying process. And I'm always happy to bring more clarity where I can. Before we get into it, go ahead and drop a like on this video and subscribe to my channel. I give these home buying and selling tips, regular updates for the DFW and North Texas real estate market, and local highlights for the Dallas-Fort Worth area. If any of that interests you, make sure you're subscribed for more free content. Now, let's talk about Texas home inspections. So we'll start with what an inspector does and doesn't do. So the inspector does not go investigate how something happened or why it's not working. They're not taking anything apart, not trying to fix anything, not trying to seek out anything that's not present, visible, and accessible. They cannot tell you everything that can go wrong or will go wrong or see the future about what's going to happen with the property. They don't have x-ray vision or a crystal ball. What the inspector does is work through the Property Inspection Report form regulated and directed by the Texas Real Estate Commission, TREC. That's the government body that regulates real estate transactions in Texas. That report covers all the major areas that the state has seen as vital for consumers to have inspected and set standards for that state licensed inspectors are looking for. Often things you're not even thinking about, or don't even know exist, but it's good to have a professional look at it and report its condition before you move forward with a transaction. And the way the inspector marks on that report is very black and white. It's easy to understand. There's 4 boxes for them to check: inspected, not present, and deficient. If they check that it was inspected but not deficient, that means they didn't see anything to report as an issue with that item. Although sometimes they'll make a note for something they may want you to note, just for general upkeep. A lot of inspectors want you to know how to take care of your house. If they check it as inspected and deficient, don't panic. That simply means there was something in the state's regulatory inspection code that they were required to report. So it could be a $5 fix or it could be a $5,000 fix. That's where we want to go and figure that out. And the move is that you'll go into the notes, and that's where they'll tell you where the thing is, what they found, why it's deficient, and they'll usually say whether it's a safety issue or if there is a clear fix needed. Sometimes they have to report things that are normal conditions for a house built a few decades ago, but aren't a real problem. Or sometimes there's things reported that you'll be perfectly fine living with or can fix yourself with a quick trip to Home Depot and a 10-minute YouTube video. That's where it's good for the home buyer to show up for the end of the inspection to talk with the inspector and get a rundown of what the inspector thinks is most important and worth following up on, and then having a good real estate agent to walk through the report with you and give their analysis and give you advice so you can decide how to best move forward. Now let's talk about some common mistakes that people make with inspections. Before we talk about the mistakes people make when dealing with information that's on the report, let's hit a mistake that people often make leading up to the report. Something every realtor has seen: tank a home purchase. Don't bring your dad to the inspection. Now look, I know that's not a hard and fast rule. I'm sure your dad loves you and is very proud of you for buying a house. But every dad thinks they're an inspector. Parents are often overprotective and looking for problems that aren't necessarily problems. And parents can be one of the biggest factors in making their kids panic and get cold feet over things that are really non-issues, things they don't even need to be nervous about. So I know they mean well, and I'm sure they learned a lot from buying their house back in the 90s, but they aren't professionals. And in general, passing your inspection report around to every friend who's ever bought a house or your cousin who's a realtor out of state usually doesn't get you better advice, since they don't know the details of this deal in this area. And it really only ever serves to freak you out. So obviously there's some humor there. You're welcome to talk to your family. If a family member wants to come along, that's perfectly okay. But the point is, you should take non-professional advice with a grain of salt and trust the people you hire. Now, a super common mistake people make with what's actually on the report. Just because it's on the report doesn't mean that you should ask the sellers to fix it. Now, I know that sounds counterintuitive, but just because something is marked deficient on the report doesn't mean it's a major problem. It could be a cheap fix or a condition that was normal when the house was built that isn't in line with 2023 building standards. Repair negotiations are finicky. You need to be wise about what you ask for and thoughtful about what you need versus what you want, because both sides have to be willing to agree to it, and you don't want to seem unreasonable. This is not your Christmas wish list. You typically want to ask for your big ticket items, safety hazards, and things that could prevent your loan from funding. Not simple fixes, not cosmetic changes that you don't like. The reason that you want to be thoughtful about what to ask for brings us to the last mistake I'll mention. The sellers don't have to agree to fix anything. Real estate transactions work from written contracts. So, a rule of thumb, if it's not written into the contract, they probably don't have to do it. Repair negotiations are there for you to come to an agreement of what you're going to add to the contract as something that the sellers and the buyers are both agreeing to. That means if you have something that you want fixed, they have to agree to it. And that's why you have negotiations, that's why you have an option period, so a set number of days that you can back out if there's something on the inspection report that's a deal breaker. Just because it's on the inspection report doesn't mean the sellers have to fix it. So you need to be thoughtful and work with your agent to decide what's worth asking for, what you're comfortable to move forward with to buy the house. Finally, let's do a quick overview of the report itself. Now we're going to go section by section, not line by line. I'm not an inspector. It would take us all day to hit every little thing that could show up. I just want to give you a general idea of what the report covers. So the first section on the report is structural systems. That's things like your foundation, your roof, doors, walls, windows, the things that make the house a house, the things that make the house stand up, closed from the elements, and usable. The second section on the report is electrical systems. So that's your wiring, electrical panel, outlets, that are working, stuff like that. The third section is for heating, cooling, and ventilation systems. This is super important in Texas, making sure your AC works, your heater works. How old is that equipment? The fourth section is plumbing systems. So making sure you have hot water, things are draining properly, making sure your plumbing and gas lines seem to be in working order. The fifth section is appliances, so dishwashers, garage door openers, ovens, if it's attached to the house. Then the sixth section is optional systems, so like if there's a pool or a sprinkler system or other things on the property like a shed that you're asking the inspector to check. Now, oftentimes optional systems take an additional fee or request to get checked since they're not, the standard is just checking the primary building on the property. So after those basic sections, there's addendums for comments and photos. Now those comments are usually filling out in a lot more detail anything noted on the main report, and that tends to be the more understandable section of the report. It's not a bunch of boxes to check. And the photos provide both general views of the space and any items the inspector took a photo of to better show you what they were seeing. So those are the main sections of the report itself. And a good inspector will answer questions that you have about it, and a good realtor will help you decipher what's important and what's worth asking for, and will give you some insight into what's realistic with repair negotiations, because it changes with the market. So that's an overview of home inspections for Texas home buyers. Obviously, there's a million more things that could be said for specific houses, specific situations, but I hope that gives you a better understanding of what an inspection is for, why it matters, and what to inspect when you're inspecting. That's a good one, right? No? Okay. If you found any of that helpful, make sure you've given this video a like. If you have any questions or comments, be sure to leave those in the comments section, or you can always reach out to me through the contact info in my channel. Thanks again for joining me today. Again, my name is Chase Hansen. I'm a realtor serving the greater Dallas-Fort Worth area in North Texas. If you or someone you know are looking to buy, sell, or lease a property in that area, I'd love to connect and help you however I can. Find me on Instagram at Hansen Realtors DFW, and be sure that you're subscribed to this YouTube channel for more real estate tips and tricks, local highlights for the DFW area. I'll see you next time.